I'm Jenny here at Las Vegas Comic Con, the amazing Las Vegas Comic Con, and I am sitting down with the author and one of the creators of the graphic novel Chew.
Hello.
John Layman.
Hi there.
And so, just for those in the audience who might not be like super familiar with Chew, which is a great book, everyone should read it. What is Chew about?
It's a comedy published by Image, a dark comedy about a detective who gets psychic impressions from what he eats. So he's got to go to crime scenes and eat gross things, dead bodies, and gross things for clues. And he's got like a wacky supporting cast, and he eats to solve crimes. And it's a very food-centric world. Every storyline and character sort of has something to do with food.
And so there's a small twist in the world of Chew that we don't quite have here on the real world, and that's because a certain food is illegal. So
it was chicken is illegal, and so a bird flu killed millions of people. So chicken's illegal, and you have people dealing eggs and selling buffalo wings on street corners like drug dealers. And Chew kind of got its start from. I had a bunch of weird ideas like, chicken would be outlaw, and guys are selling eggs on street corners, and here's a guy who's a cannibal cop, and here's a girl who is a food writer who writes stuff, and she writes it so accurately you can taste it, and but they all seem like Saturday Night Live sketches where it's the same joke over and over and it gets really old, and then I realized they're all about food, and so if I combined it and combined kind of three stupid ideas into hopefully one good idea, and then I just said I'm going to write a very food-centric book, and suddenly what was kind of dumb ideas became like a really rich universe, and now I'm 42 issues in and still going strong.
And so a lot of exciting things have been happening in the world of Chew. Namely, there's a series right now that's being made.
Well, there's a cartoon movie being made, a cartoon adaptation, Heavy Metal Magazine, which is now Heavy Metal Entertainment Company for the 21st century, are putting together an adaptation of the first trade, like a direct adaptation, and we've got Stephen Yoon, who's a Glenn from Walking Dead, voicing Tony Chew, our lead character, and he's already done the recording, so we've been in studio with him. And, he's basically reading the comic book to be adapted. We've got Felicia Day playing Amelia, the love interest and female protagonist. And then we've got a new round of cast members being announced very soon. And it'll take the project to the next level because they're just as big as, Stephen and Felicia.
And when you started this out, did you ever envision that this was where you would end up?
No, it was supposed to be. I hired Rob Guillory to do 5 issues, and because I'd had books that didn't sell before, and I was writing video games at the time, and but it was like a long-term, finite job that I knew would end, and everyone would be laid off. So I took some money, and I'd been pitching Chew for 3 years at the time. Nobody wanted it, and so finally I'm like, I have to write this thing. I'm going to take money from my own savings because no one else wants to do it, finance it myself. It won't sell, but I'll be able to give it to editors and get other work. And then it came out and it kind of blew up.
Absolutely. And it's because it's great. Just the dialogue's great. The characters are so vivid. And so where do you want to go from here? What would you, in an ideal world, where would you like to see this go further?
I just want to get to issue 60. I mean, it's a novel with an ending, and all I care about is writing the entire thing. And after that, I've done what I set out to do.
And so, have you had the ending in sight, or
from the very beginning?
So you've always known how this is going to end.
And I know, now we're kind of to the last 15 issues, and I know pivotal moments. I'll know what, and I've known for a while. Oh, here's what happens in 45. Here's what happens in 50. I have to get from point A to point B, and it still gives me enough freedom to tell, new stories, but I've always kind of had a direction that I'm going.
And so have you always known this is sort of what you want to do, being a comic book writer?
Always. I grew up, because I'm very old, in the 80s when Dave Sim was championing create-your-own books, and he had a book called Cerebus that was his own world. It was a finite novel way longer than mine, but everyone sort of in the 80s of a certain like indie sensibility wanted their own Cerebus. They wanted their own book that they owned that told, their kind of epic story, and that's always what I wanted. And I didn't expect I'd get it with Chew in the way I did, but here it is, and we're going to 60, and if I don't do anything else after Chew, I've done what I've set out to do. That being said, I have to pay the rent, so I'll probably come up with something, shortly after Chew so I can keep paying the bills.
And so would you say that you have any influences as far as writing goes? Any specific comic book artists or anything like that?
No, not overtly. I mean, because I was an editor for 5 years in the late 90s, and I edited Warren Ellis and Kurt Busiek and Joe Casey and Mark Miller, and you read scripts, and if you're of a certain mindset, you study them. And I tried to learn from the scripts I read, and even bad writers, like some of the people I didn't name, you can learn stuff from even bad writers have good ideas. And I read hundreds upon hundreds of scripts while I was editing, and I think I would pick and choose, things I liked from different writers, but there's no one I don't want to say, oh, I'm trying to write like Alan Moore, or I'm just trying to do my own thing, but there's definitely people I like, but I'm not trying to emulate them.
And so will Chew always have just a very special place in your heart?
Oh yeah, it's no exaggeration that has completely changed my life. I'm financially secure in a way I wasn't before Chew, and I've done all kinds of I've seen the world now because of Chew. I've gone all over. Went to India this year. I've gone to Africa. I've gone all over the place, and we're in 9 different languages. So, without Chew, at the end of the day, in the old days, maybe I'd make $40, and I'd be like, oh, beer money. And things have changed when you've got a book that does as well as Chew. We've got custom shoes coming out. We've got a game. We've got statues, stuffed animals. It's like a business now, which I never set out to do, but it's its own little it's not like Walking Dead, which is an empire, but it's a little mini empire.
It is. It's definitely in its own right. It's a mini empire. Plus, with The Walking Dead, Steve Yeun is now in both of them, so that's good sign for that one. Yeah, I mean when you have the guy from the most popular TV show in the world, being in your cartoon, that's pretty good. It was very surreal to be in the recording studio, watching him read words you wrote 8 years ago, never thinking it would go anywhere.
And so if I'm not mistaken, you have a kid, right?
Yep.
And so does he just think that you're the coolest person ever, Dad writes comic books, this is so cool?
I don't think he understands, because he's 7.5, and all my friends are comic book people, so he just assumes every person in the world is a comic book writer, and it's kind of boring to him. He likes the Lego games with superheroes, but I've told him if I die, you have to take over and finish Chew, which will just be nonstop fart jokes.
Be a little Axe Cop in the
yeah. But yeah, I think maybe when he's older, he'll realize that hey, your dad buys toys and writes comic books and video games. That's but he doesn't see it yet.
Yeah. And so what's your writing process like? Do you sit down? Do you do rough drafts?
I'm terrible. I put it off as long as possible. I mess around. I start fights on Facebook. I'm a jackass on Twitter. And eventually when something's due, I think about it I think about it going to bed and kind of mull over it. And I kind of half sleep, and then I'll wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, write it out, and then be exhausted the rest of the day. And I repeat it, and it takes me about a week to write a script, but I haven't really slept in a week. And so after I finish the script, I'm mostly dead and useless for about 3 days of playing video games and screwing around. It's a terrible way to write. But I don't do a lot of drafts. I think I've got some editorial instincts from being an editor, and if something is wrong, I can feel it, and I'm prepared to do anything. If it requires a rewrite, sometimes I just chuck a whole script and start over again. But if it feels right and I'm happy with it, I move on. And there's a lot of people especially kind of developing writers who will finish a script and they'll just noodle it forever, and they'll never do number 2 because they're trying to make number 1 perfect. And you're never going to get the absolute perfect script. So if you feel good about it, move on, or you're just going to get stuck in quicksand forever.
And so on that note, just sort of like a final anecdote, would you have any advice for future aspiring writers of comic books or like novels, like just writers in general?
Well, it sounds really basic, but do it. Because a lot of people come up to me and they're like, oh yeah, I really want to write a comic book. I have this idea. I've had this idea forever. And it's like, well, if you had this idea forever, it's never going to be anything. And maybe someone has a worse idea, but if they put it to paper, they've at least done something with it. And it's almost the same principle of sitting there noodling it forever. If you're just noodling it in your head, it'll never exist and you'll never make it happen. So if you have the idea, get it on paper. And if you don't like it, start rewriting it, but at least do it.
So aspiring writers, pay very close attention to John Layman.
Thanks for having me.
Do it. So thank you once again to John Layman for sitting down with us. This has been amazing.
And I'm on Nerdcore, right?
Nerdcore Unlimited, yes.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, John Layman. Thank you for watching, and thank you.